Ladies and gentlemen, are we live once again? Yes, we are live once again. How's everybody doing today? This is your semi-savvy, politically minded host, Abby Kaufman, coming here to you live and in color from our secret undisclosed location on Newport Harbor in Newport Beach, California. And as you can see, I've got a sweatshirt on, and it is noontime in Newport Beach in California, and I've got a sweatshirt on. That's how cool it is. At least the breeze is a little cool. It'll probably burn off soon, but if you think every day in Southern California is like warm sun in front of the beach, think again. It's overcast more than you can believe. It usually burns off, but sometimes it doesn't. So anyway, moving right along. On this Wednesday, August 5th, I'm really excited because tomorrow we have a very, very special guest, and her name is Lisa Rodriguez, and Lisa ran for Congress, and she didn't make the runoffs, or she didn't make the general rather, and I asked her if she would consider coming on to chat about what she learned running for Congress. And isn't that, don't you think that'd be really cool? I can't wait to hear what she's got to say. I've known people that have won races. I've known people that have lost races, but I've never had somebody willing, to come on and chat about it. So we're really looking forward to that, and I thank her a million times for doing this. And Lisa practices immigration law, so if anybody needs a really fine immigration attorney, I can't recommend Lisa highly enough. Does this not show you how incredibly honest she is? She's willing to come on and chat about an experience that was, needless to say, an experience, but she's willing to tap into all those little sub experiences that went up to making the big experience. So, guys, like I said, this is kind of a new thing, and I'm going to do this every day because I think it is just really important to be up front, to have a theme. And the theme is the president has a credibility problem. Now, I know that will knock you over with a feather, but yeah, he's got a basic credibility problem, which means that that's a really, really nice way of saying something like, he lies like a rug, lies like a dog, lies like a, lies like a pathological liar, I guess you could say. And I don't think we'd be that far off, do you? So anyway, while I'm mentioning his credibility, let's talk about what he's doing now relative to an attorney general. And everybody and his cousin knows that he wants Todd Blanche, his personal attorney and acting assistant U.S. attorney, to be the attorney general. And you're like, wait, this guy's, this is like really bad. This is like, Trump putting his buddy in charge of the enforcement department. I mean, this is hugely bad. Think about all the prosecutions that Trump wanted brought that went nowhere. And you know what? Those things cost a little money. And, those guys don't care because it's not their money directly, it's everybody else's. And, that's another theme I want to point out. The president ordered, I think 250 new Escalades the other day. And, I kind of looked over and thought we were fighting a war. But, it's really hard to tell. He's between the war room and the golf course. God only knows where you're likely to find him these days. And I would submit to you that it is more than likely the golf course. And I did a little song the other day, and it started off like Trump lost in Iran while golfing with a tan. And, if it wasn't just so sad, but it really is. But anyway, Todd Blanche. So, and, you can't, and don't forget, when you talk about Todd Blanche, all this stuff, and all Trump and everybody else, you're kind of putting January 6th in the rearview mirror. You're giving him a pass for that because you're okay with the president. And if you're one of those middle of the road guys that voted for Trump last time, you are entirely responsible for this. We told you, and you wouldn't believe us. And, it really pains me that, anybody loses health care or food. And it really pains me when the people that lost were the people that believed. So anyway, guys, that's just asking if you would reconsider and never ever vote Republican again, because whoever controls the outcome between 2026 and 2028 is going to rule for 100 years, if or as long as the Republican lasts. If these guys get in now, there's no turning back. You've got the elephants with Oracle, like the database kings involved, moving to control the media. I mean, this is real otherworldly stuff, or truly beyond 1984 stuff, and we just have to beat it back. And see, these guys, of course, are not stupid. They realize that this is a really rare opportunity and a unique moment in history. And not only that, but they've been preparing for this unique moment in history through things like the Heritage Foundation, and that's why they were able to hit the ground floor running with Elon Musk and his chainsaw and the Doge and the mass layoffs. I mean, this is what they didn't dream this up overnight. This is a long considered plan, and it's a long considered plan not to win an election. It's a long considered plan to take power, and you know maybe not have the free and fair elections that we're kind of used to having. Because don't forget, didn't Trump start sowing that seed of doubt way back when a landslide, when it's unceremoniously stripped away, you lie and so and so. And then he admits it to other people in the White House. Oh, I can't believe I lost to Biden. Well, you did, pal. And worse than that, it's always the cover-up and the extreme you went to. People died on January 6th. I mean, you can slice it any way you want. But anyway, we are here, and Todd Blanche was being grilled by the Senate Judiciary Committee on whether to advance his nomination to the full Senate. And so, of course, you get Tom Tillis and John Cornyn, making a little noise. But in the end, they just rolled over like lapdogs. I mean, they're worse than Lindsey Graham. You would thought they might have had some backbone, because they're not. They got primary. They're out. And, the guy that took them out was Trump. They owe the guy nothing. And they rolled over like lapdogs. Does anybody think that the guy that dreamed up or that helped put together the $1.8 billion weaponization fund and the tax immunity for life forever and ever and ever for you and anybody you knew and anybody you looked at, I mean, this is the guy you want as the Attorney General? The Attorney General is supposed to represent like the United States and the people. That's why when it's I don't know, some big narco laundering, money laundering thing in federal court, it's not Todd Blanche versus, whatever the smuggler's name is. It's the people of the United States versus the people of the United States versus. And it seems to me as though he has no clue as to the role of an Attorney General. And, the guy, it's really funny. He was a partner at Cadwalader, which is, I think, the oldest law firm in New York. So he's obviously not an idiot. He's obviously a decent lawyer on some level, but he's just way out of his depth here. And it's the conflicts of interest are all over the place. And guys, if the Republicans do vote to confirm Blanche as Attorney General, you have to write off the entire lot of them. You have to challenge each and every Senate seat from here on out, and do it based on truth. Who's your buddy in January 6th? Like I said, the president's got a credibility problem. He can say what he wants, and the market is booming. There's no doubt about it. But did he have anything to do with it? Well, I mean, at certain times, probably yes. I mean, he clearly has, doesn't want to talk about stocks he owns or is about to own or is about to sell. I mean, and the bottom line of it is, if Trump makes $1, it's good. If anything else happens, it's bad. And that's essentially what they're running on. How else could they justify a Todd Blanche as an Attorney General? You thought it was bad with Christy Nome, the puppy killer, But I mean, the incompetence just keeps rising. And did I read? Was it in the Financial Times? Maybe. It seems like. The Financial Times is where you get a lot of stuff that just so happens to get overlooked over here. And if I'm not mistaken, there was a Financial Times thing about how we have used like 80% of our missile stockpile. Now, if I'm not mistaken, missiles are those things you like use in war. So you kind of need them. You can't like just go to the missile store and get like what's a gross 144 dozen and get a couple of gross of I don't know Patriot missiles, Tomahawks, and just throw a few things in on the side. No, you can't do that. These things take forever and they're expensive, and 80% of them are gone. And do you know why they're gone? Because the war was not planned for properly. They didn't take Hegseth did. Pretty Boy Pistol Pete Kegseth, in case you're wondering who I was talking about. I didn't think about the resources available and the job. Everybody just bought into the couple day war, and the Iranians will fold like a cheap umbrella. And what a severe misunderstanding of geopolitics. Those guys in the Middle East, they used to, adversity. They used to be bombed. And in case they have not made the statement over the last, I'll give them, a couple thousand years, is they're not going anywhere. They're just not going anywhere. You can do whatever it is you want to do. Whether it's we'll hang out in the mountains in Afghanistan like Osama bin Laden or whatever it is. These guys are going to take your best punch. It's the rope-a-dope thing. And what do we do? Well, the minute Trump gets his thumb out of his behind, maybe we can have a discussion. But that's really impossible because discussions are, I don't think Trump has discussions. I think he delivers monologues, and he assembles his audience from like whatever rich and powerful people work for him. And let's while we're talking about this kind of credibility problem and having Todd Blanche as the Attorney General, my God. And but let me just stop there for a second. And Trump is apparently disappointed with Judge Janine Pirro for dismissing the case against the Olympic cyclists for vandalizing the reflecting pool. And this is despite no evidence to charge him, and tons of evidence as to who done it. Okay, and of course, from day one, Trump's official line: vandalism. Those damn commie, socialist vandals. They ripped up my swimming pool, or my reflecting pool, and so as it turns out, I think they, had it drained improperly and drove a couple of, I don't know, what do you call those tanks? Marshall tanks or something. Drove some tank, whatever they did. And, they caused it themselves, but there's like zero responsibility. They did this. They did this. And then they lie about it. And then they wonder why they have a credibility problem. It's because they lie about things. This guy did not vandalize the pool in any way, shape, or form. He told the truth. It was floating, and I took some. So Trump gets pissed at Janine. I shouldn't say that. Gets upset with Janine about dismissing the case that he still thinks it's vandals. Now, keep in mind what you just witnessed. Trump does not. Trump believes in something. All evidence to the contrary. Now, I'll kind of go over that one more time. Trump believes in things and theories like this vandalism. He believes in things that without evidence, things that cannot be proved, things that can be disproved, and he just keeps the faith, baby. And I was talking to a friend of mine about religion and faith and all that, and I'm like, I've come to the conclusion that faith is that which you believe in, all evidence to the contrary, because there's no real evidence about geez, how about the flood? And Noah's the only person, and all the animals. And how does that pencil out? Oh, and I thought of a great analogy since I mentioned Noah in the Ark. See, I think Trump's trying to get as much money as he can before he leaves office because that's going to be his Noah's Ark. That's going to be his escape. And as you know, uh, just because he's gathering all this stuff doesn't mean he's going to split with the money. But based on past history, this does seem kind of Noah's Arkish. And then the question becomes, well, why would it? What's going to happen that he would need such an ark to escape? And I have a little theory on that. And if you had been, tuned in lately, you'll know that I've been talking about the fact that Trump had asked for a master list of U.S. spies, like human intelligence. And of course, the question's why, but they ask, it doesn't really matter because what the president wants, the president gets. Hold on, the sun's coming out. I want to take my sweatshirt off because I don't want to get too warm. Hang on, just a second, and we'll hit the be right back. Guys, I think I am back. How about that? Am I back? Yes, I am back without my sweatshirt, and it feels really nice now. Sun's coming out. It's probably about 72-ish, and it's a good day to have a chat like this. And so where were we? Noah's Ark. So Trump asked for a list of U.S. spies, human intelligence. And of course, traditionally that's the kind of thing on a need to know basis. Nobody really needs to know who all the spies are except the guy that's running the CIA. So Trump has this list of master spies. And now, what do you think why do you want them? What's he going to do with them? Well, based on his, reputation as a business person slash thief, I would think that he's going to try to monetize that list somehow. And then the question becomes, well, how much? It's like, whether somebody's, anyway. So the only question is how much we know he's going to sell us out. There's no, it's what he does. So there's no doubt as to whether he's going to do it. The only question is how much. And so I'm thinking that, this Trump Noah's Ark thing, this could be like a flood. And he's going to want a boatload of money. I mean, and just for the money and the power, maybe not necessarily because it, will prolong his life, which is, kind of growing shorter by the day. So, and what I think the deal is, see, I think that the range would be, he might enter negotiations at 100 billion. Think about that. Enter negotiations at 100 billion. But then, things probably don't get really interesting till you get to the $500 billion stage. And I'm going to tell you something. If he wouldn't sell for $500 billion, he'll surely sell it for $1 trillion. And I think that's where he's going with this. He wants to be richer than Elon Musk. He wants to be a trillionaire. Maybe he'll talk Tesla stock down a little bit to get, and SpaceX stock down a little bit to a little bit more to give Elon a little more, or to have a little more separation between the true billionaire who's Trump and it's like the mayonnaise. You got the real thing and the cheap imitation. Trump will be the real thing, and Musk will be the cheap imitation. Either one of which is pretty disgusting in and of itself. But what do you guys think? So we've got an open phone line at 949-629-3820. And so what would a Boy Scout do with that list? He'd probably return it to the CIA head. What would, now you see, here's where things get interesting. there was a little thing about how senior citizens, I love this, ought to forego those, like, kind of southern states and towns and all that, and move to someplace like, I don't know, Spearfish, Montana, or Spearfish, South Dakota, and those places near the Badlands and all this. And I'm like, I've driven through there. I mean, those guys get snow and it gets cold. Why would some old person want to relocate for whatever reason to like, I don't, what were some of those places in South Dakota? Well, the of course Mount Rushmore, but isn't that Deadwood? Deadwood's right there, and the Custer State Park, and I mean there's ain't much there, but and it's cold. I mean, I don't know. I can't just say that strong enough. It's cold. And I think if you're kind of used to wearing shorts in Florida, I think this is going to be like a huge adjustment, like maybe a life and death adjustment. So, do think twice before you move to like Deadwood, South Dakota. I mean, I'm telling you, if you live in the southern part of the United States, you cannot imagine how just bone chilling. I mean, when I was there, it was like 7 degrees, and just seven. Yeah, 07 is, and it was pretty and all that stuff, but I will never do that again. So anyway, my own little mistake about all this. So, and I love this. Of course, with Trump, everything's going to happen. All the good stuff's going to happen tomorrow, right? And so the straits can be open tomorrow with no fees or no tolls. I think no tolls, and he's going to claim what a great victory, just no tolls. Well, I think Iran and Oman, who are kind of like conspiring to run this thing, have settled on charging what we euphemistically would call a service fee. And I think the service fee is kind of like, I can only equate it to putting like a large pipe in an extremely small hole. I mean, it's just designed to hurt, right? Uh, so what's the deal? Service fees. Guys, aren't you just and you wonder why everybody just treats you as a bunch of liars, a bunch of incompetent liars. It's because it's on display every day, and I mean, you do a great job of spending money. What, like a $500 million on the plane remodel? That's not right. I mean, the guy's just got a history, and people just refuse to acknowledge the history. And Trump doesn't necessarily. Of course, he doesn't write history, but he really tries to rewrite it. And just think, he's got people absolutely convinced that January 6th was a walk in the park. And I just, I think these people deserve a split screen. And, actually, what I would really, really like to see in the January 6th deal, I would like to see two really fine law schools with two really good moot court, trial court teams. And one team, and just flip a coin. Who gets to prosecute? Who gets to defend? And let's see and hear a real prosecution of January 6th. If you want to, you can even limit evidence to that which the January 6th committee received. And you televise this thing. I think it'd be huge. But, woe is me. And, of course, it could take a while. But it would just be fascinating. I'd love to see this play out in court. Or at least a made-for-TV version of court. I need, I mean, of course, the prosecution always has the easier job to do. But anyway, just wanted to kind of pass that along as a matter of conversation. Oh, and how about this? Now, just to show you that Trump really, really, really does look out for everybody. He really only wants to improve things. He really doesn't want to dominate anything. He just wants to make it a little nicer. So, and what does he want to do to try to make it nicer? he wants to add that triumphant arch, that 250-foot arch that coincidentally. Now, keep in mind that he'll find a way to get this done, and I don't mean that as a good thing. I mean he's just dogged, and people. And, it's not so much the fact that he's dogged; it's the fact that he's dogged, and nobody tells him no. I mean that's the big deal. Is you got to tell a guy no, and mean it. So anyway, so let me ask you this: how, particularly if anybody's been to D.C., and like I say, the phone lines are open 949-629-3820. But how many people that have been to D.C., how many historic sites do you think that that triumphant arch is going to, and I'm going to put this in quotation marks, adversely affect? So I think this was either from the New York Times or Washington Post. How many historic sites is that 250 something foot arch? Uh, and now keep in mind that's going to cost a little money here, and all the time we don't have health care, don't cut back food stamps, and we got plenty of money for those old triumphal arches and for those 250 Escalades and for those that fleet of Finnish icebreakers that Trump ordered, even though we don't have the infrastructure to pay for it. Are you getting the general drift here? All for him, none for you. All for him, none for you. And guess what, guys? You middle of the road people who believed him or who did not believe in Kamala Harris, look what you did. This is entirely you. I watch you and the rest of the, had the MAGA people supported him, it had been fine. It's just the, the dumbass people that believed him. But, it is, when you look at it in his history, it is the ultimate con. Yeah, he's conned people and he's conned banks and all that stuff, but now he's conned a country. And how could you see it coming? Well, I'm going to suggest that, history is always beneficial. And I'm going to go one step further, talk about, history. I hit the old be right back thing, and I'm right here. What was I going to say? I forgot. We'll have to come back to it. But yeah, people have got to tell the guy no. So anyway, moving right along, let's get back into the Iran deal. And where are we? Well, supposedly we're winning. Now, see, that's another concept that I don't. Apparently, my idea of winning is, just kind of different. Winning is like, I don't know, like winning. Like somebody gives up or you beat them and you win. But I don't see where those Iranians have given up, and I don't see where we're just being welcomed. So, and like I said, how much could these service fees be? Now, wouldn't it be coincidental if the service fee was based on the footage or the tonnage of the vessel? In that case, it would pretty much resemble a toll. It's just a different term of art. And how would Trump spend that as the greatest one in history? We got this back with no tolls. The guy's just a deceptive weasel. And like I said, while we're talking about deceptive weasels, I think Janine Pirro kind of wanted to keep her law license. If you keep bringing these baseless cases, eventually, bad stuff happens. And you don't have no idea what your malpractice premiums will jump to if you have any sort of a bad ethics thing. So just a word to the wise. Okay. Oh, I know what it was. It was 37 historic sites would be adversely affected. 37. But does Trump care? Of course not. 37. I'm gonna be 107. What does he care, right? And you elected him. And then what I really kind of liked was Katie Rogers had a thing today about how nothing seems to get Trump beyond the year 2020. It's COVID and Biden just keep haunting the guy, and he cannot he cannot process a loss. He may briefly acknowledge, But as far as that deep, I don't know, 7 stages of grieving, kind of, remorse and losing and all that, he can't do it. And I think we're witnessing the mental breakdown of a of someone who didn't have many marbles to use anyway. Yeah, I think he was about down to the last one or two, and now they get kind of powdery. Uh, so guys, please vote Democrat this time, and like I said, remember this no matter what. With Democrats you at least have a chance. With Republicans, as has been shown, they have no credibility. You cannot believe a word they say. And I'm not, and it's not like there's not examples of this. The only way I can make that statement is with proof. And that's just, everywhere. I won't touch Snap. I won't do this. I won't do this. And then you get Elon Musk and his chainsaw. Um, and how about the way the civil service has just been hollowed out? Can you imagine the brain drain? I mean, like if anybody's worked around, any sort of institution for 20, 30 years and have seen like the same people in the county, in the clerk's house, in the local courthouse, whatever it is, those places tend to attract people that are knowledgeable, however, you define knowledgeable. And there's always that one person that knows like where the skeletons are and how to do things. Well, Trump just fired those guys. Not to mention the climate guys. And oh, by the way, the wildfires in I don't know, Washington State, Crete, England, Albania, Russia. Are those ringing a bell with anybody? I kind of think that we need our own blue baseball caps. Except these things need to say Al Gore was right about everything. Um, just and of course coal at a time when everybody's moving towards green energy. It's like he could not sabotage the states if he tried. And deep down, you got to wonder if Putin or somebody who's directing this. Is it anybody beyond? Is it some international aspect to the Heritage Foundation? Well, those guys have their own, especially in France. And Germany's not far behind. I mean, those guys are only, what, 2 generations away from uh, genocide, from wiping out 6 million Jews and God knows how many Armenians and Romanians. And one like I mean, they discriminated, obviously, but, if you were an inferior human being, you were fair game. So, think about this. We're not that far removed from the savagery of genocide. And I'm going to tell you, when I look around at Gaza and Iran and just the destruction we've brought, uh, who's going to rebuild that and who's going to pay for it? By some means, it should be us. And even though Pottery Barn never had this kind of thing, when who's that general? Whatever general had the Pottery Barn analogy for George Bush, and see if you broke it, you buy it. Well, I see Pottery Barn was never like that, but clearly we caused all this damage. And what about Venezuela? Didn't we kind of bomb those guys just to snatch their president? I mean, you know what it comes down to, ladies and gentlemen, is the law. Is we no longer have a society where people obey the law. I mean, how about this extrajudicial killings at sea? If you're on a powerboat leaving Venezuela, you would get bombed or shot. And then if you didn't die, they'd come back and finish you off. You're a sitting duck. And the highest office in the land says do it. So, are we a lawful society? No. And the bad part is it starts at the top. I mean, it's there every day. Just like the Trump wants the guy tried on vandalism for the reflecting pool, despite all evidence to the contrary. Now, that's not unlike me walking on the street and saying, "Hola, amigo," and ICE puts a hood over my head and throws me in the back of a van. Vanished. My family may never hear from me again. Does anybody doubt that's the ultimate goal here? I mean, it's on TV. You can see it with the ice guys. And you know how much, what a stretch it would be to tell ICE to, oh, by the way, you don't have to be terribly dark skinned for this. Don't forget to, you might want to stop by that old newspaper reporter's office and, suggest they quit covering me in such depth. Do you think Trump would do that? Violate the First Amendment? In a heartbeat. I mean, he's already called for, Maggie Haberman to be charged with treason. And, the truth of the matter is, without the newspaper reporters, the only voice would be his. And what's the object of the game? He wants the only voice to be his. So, and that's why the newspapers are so important part of the First Amendment. Without reporting, how would we get knowledge? We would get statements from the government, which is kind of like propaganda, and it seems like Trump's kind of, got that part wired. Uh, so yeah, if anybody doubts that's where we're going, give me a call and argue 949-629-3820, and I said we'll kind of, I'll chat with you. I'll chat with you about that at length. And while we're talking about the coal and climate stuff, you guys may or may not know I have no, more detailed knowledge of what fracking is. I know it's some violent underground procedure designed to, find oil and all that stuff. And would you believe? I'm sure this is purely coincidence, but would you believe? Now this is like unproven, untested science until they just kind of did it, right? And would you believe there's radioactive water bubbling up kind of near where they're fracking? And I'm not scientific enough to know exactly where this radioactive water comes from that's bubbling up in Ohio. But I'm pretty sure that if radioactive anything gets in your water supply, you're just screwed. And God knows how many other places it goes to. I don't know how that stuff works. A radioactive water supply. And why did they do it? Mo money, mo money, mo money. Just like the Wayans brothers and my mother used to always say. It's just mo money, mo money, mo money. With Biden, we were so close to the Green New Deal. I mean, we had it. And enough of you guys swung to Trump. It's just plain and simple. You had a choice between a decent person and a monster, and you chose the monster. Listen, in like a WWE or WWF or whatever it is, wrestling kind of match where everybody just kind of picks their side and screams like crazy and goes home the next day and all's well. This is like a real, this is a real fight here. I mean, there's real winners and real losers. So guys, like I say, step up this time. Okay. But so yeah, we could have had Biden. And you know what that's an example of to me? And that's letting the perfect be the enemy of the good. I'm the first one to tell you that things were far less than ideal in the 2024 presidential election. However, there's still no excuse. Absolutely none for voting for Trump. And I'm going to give you one reason. Just one reason to never ever vote for Trump. Are you ready for this? Just one reason. What could it be? Well, I'm pretty sure you guessed it. It's January 6th. After that, how could anybody give the guy a pass on anything? And the answer is, duh, is because you're just non-thinking, Fox News watching, word salad repeating Republican sycophants. I mean, and you guys are really good. I mean, whatever the party line is, you echo it and echo it. Unfortunately, sort of make it true. And then you might turn the volume up a little bit, but, volume doesn't make it true. Only the facts make it true. And President Trump just has a personality disorder that doesn't let him process the truth. so that it gets distorted into some fantasy in his mind. And like I said, I'd love to know, if the fantasy is that he's been, of course, the fantasy is that, excuse me, he was deprived of a rightful 2020 win, but it was unceremoniously stripped away, so on and so forth. And I mean, it took a while to call that race, and I think, talking to my brother when Arizona finally got called to put Biden over the top, and it was a free and fair election, guys. I know that's not the kind you want. See, that's the problem. Republicans don't really want free and fair elections. They want to win the election. A Democrat wants, like a clean game, a fair, fairness. That's why there's this phrase about traditional notions of justice and fair play. We kind of hang on my umbrella. Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
I thought I saw something through there, but I couldn't.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
My seatmate over there came and rescued me, and I appreciate knowing. I thought that if I decreased, or maybe, you know what, maybe I didn't do that. I thought that if I didn't have it as tight and kind of decrease the sail area, that I would just kind of luff its way into the breeze, but apparently I was wrong because it just kind of flew out of that little step there. Um, but anyway, and while we're talking about credibility, anybody anybody go to like the Southwest, like Utah and New Mexico and Arizona and all that? Escalante, the Grand Stairs Monument, Bears Ears in Utah, or how about this? Has anybody been to the official darkest place in America, which is in Blanding, Utah? I think it is. And I was there. It's at the Natural Bridge National Monument, and it's the darkest place in America. And I was driving through Utah late one night, and I see the sign, and I'm like, wow, I'll never see this again. So I drove in, and there's and of course there's they kind of shade it to where you can't see the moon or anything. And so I parked, and you walk around the corner, and there was like a quarter moon showing. I'll never forget this. And it was like a flashlight. It was so bright. I mean, you would have to have a completely dark sky to do some real stargazing. But there's no doubt in my mind that would be like a super. I would to go back on a new moon, and just so you know, on a new moon, there's like nothing in the sky, which is why it goes from new moon to full moon and all that stuff. But anyway, let's. What does he do? Of course, he can't leave well enough alone. He reduces the square footage, square acreage, whatever it is, of Bears Ears National Monument. And, these things are the ancestral homeland, I think, 5 Native American tribes: the Navajo Nation, the Utes, who else? The Utes, the Hopis, the the Pueblo Zunis, and the Utes. I mean, this is important. And according to Trump, the thing's unusable because it's so big, so he's just going to improve it and make it smaller. And you would have to kind of call him on that. I think his quote was, "It's like virtually unusable" or something, and it's just a lie. And the guy, it's funny. The guy doesn't care or doesn't make the distinction between telling a big lie and telling a small lie. And I've had girlfriends like that. You should never do that with. For instance, you should never. I've had a girlfriend tell me that If she doesn't look good, tell her. I'm like, are you kidding me? I would never say that to you, not in a million years. And she goes, well, why if I didn't look good? I'm like, well, maybe in an extreme circumstance, but as a general proposition, you are the most beautiful woman on the face of the earth. And I always hope that's kind of enough to move on from. But yeah, the recreation of, options in the park are so big so many you can't use them. So we're just gonna make it a little smaller, make it a little handier and easier to use for you guys. It's just the insulting mentality day after day. But as I try as I might, we will forge ahead. And and let's. I'm sure I kind of broached this earlier, but as far as every single Republican in the House and Senate, and I mean every single one of you, every single one of you, did I say that? Every single one of you own this Trump IRS settlement, by the way. Who gets a free pass like that? Or better yet, who would ask for a free pass like that? It would have to be somebody working for a criminal or the criminal himself. I mean, tax immunity. What the hell is that? It's not like you can't tax the king? It's kind of what it sounds like to me. You can't tax the king. That's exactly what it is. You can't tax the king. Well, bite me. The hell we can't. We taxed every other president. What's different about this guy besides his lunacy? And, ladies and gentlemen, that's kind of like the key distinction. He's a lunatic. If he, or as I used to say with an old friend of mine, if he had half a brain, he'd have half a brain. But it's like the Democrats in Washington. We ain't got any power in Washington, and Trump ain't got a brain in his head. So it's gonna make for an interesting 2026. I gotta tell you. We here at Democracy Radio Network are starting to get lots of inquiries from Assembly and State Senate candidates wanting to come on and make their argument for election, and we're working on getting them together as frequently as we can. We also like to start checking in with different Democratic clubs. As a matter of fact, I chat with the guys in Edinburgh and Scotland, that is, and London, and they're, believe me, they want this even as bad as we do, if not worse. Um, but yeah, it's kind of cool to chat with those guys. I never, what Democrats abroad and indivisible abroad, we've got a really, well, it's not like the world is round anymore, and it's kind of flat. I mean, you can get anywhere and do anything in almost any place. So, it's really a shame, but I guess you could be in like Dubai and eat at Chipotle or Chipotle. I never know which way to say it. Chipotle sounds a little, Chipotle sounds a little. How can I put this? A little more authentic than Chipotle. Chipotle sounds a little contrived. Chipotle, and you get what you get. Okay, let's see. So, and of course, while we're talking about the White House, you've got these competing positions on AI regulation, and the Zuckerberg position is that it ought to be, and I think Meta and Anthropic are taking the same side of this argument. And I think they're saying that AI development ought to be done out in the open so everybody can advance with it. And of course, Chat GPT and somebody else is saying, no, we want to develop this thing privately, and the rules we want to keep kind of secret and see what happens. And the way it settles out is, I think we're still tenuously ahead in the AI race. Uh, but I mean, don't get China has the best scientists in the world. We don't have them anymore. Trump ran them out of the country. So man, we're fighting this AI war, and it is war with one hand tied behind our backs. And it's not like the enemy did that to us. Trump did that. I mean, where do you think these scientists go? They go to where they're recruited, and and these guys pretty much will go anywhere. A lot of them went to Canada, a lot of them went to Europe, and more than a few went to China. You got a really good deal. You remember I was talking about that Trump selling that old spy list? How about the Chinese? The Russians aren't the only place in town. I think the Chinese would really like that. And, at $1 trillion, it might be a bargain. And for someone like Xi, he'll figure a way to amortize it somehow. Uh, but yeah, things are just that close. Uh, so just to give you some idea, and you've guys seen the stock market just go through these insane gyrations. I mean, it's clearly on a bubble. It's clearly irrational, and people are making money hand over fist. I mean, it's not. The machine is spitting out money when it shouldn't be spitting out money. It's designed to spit out money and take money back and spit it out and take it back. And ideally, that's why you want to have an economic plan so you don't have these boom and bust periods. You want economic growth and economic declines for that matter, kind of spread out. You really don't want to bunch everything up and make things insurmountable. As it stands now, the market is so high that it's going to take a hell of a drop to get any kind of notice. And Trump, he could have a 10,000 point swing in a week. Think about that. If you had a couple of 1,000 point days, you're down 10% down to the 45s. What kind of a haircut does that represent? And again, look at the guys you have in Treasury. Bassett knows what he knows, but that's kind of all he knows. Is he's an old commodities currency trader, and he does it pretty well. That's why he's taken to helping Japan out and buying those old yen contracts. Uh, so it's like relationships. This is like really complicated, but the answer is really simple. And the answer, Democrats are the answer. There is no, I mean, I've looked around and I just don't see an answer coming from a Republican. What I see is, even people who were alleged to have principles, like John Cornyn and Tom Tillis. All I see is those guys just like rolling over like lapdogs. So I mean, there's got to be something huge at play. I mean, and they just look like whipped puppies. And I mean, you guys are grown men. You're termed out. You work for the American. I mean, I get it. Technically, you represent your constituents and your constituents only. But there is a thing called the United States of America, and you do owe the country like allegiance. That whole pledge thing. I pledge allegiance. Is kind of why we do that, or did that. I don't even know if they still do that. But anyway, let me get back to this point. Google is putting together some $200 billion to build a plant that'll supply AI chips to Anthropic, and of course, Anthropic is also Google. So Google is making a $200 billion investment in AI. So think about this. That's I mean, that's not near $1 trillion, but that's 20% of a trillion, and you're on the way to $1 trillion. And nothing, everything is so intense that it takes so much money to do anything. And I'm sure if Google could have done it for 150 billion instead of 200 billion, they would have done it. But they obviously couldn't do it. $200 billion. And do you know how much that gets peeled off along the way by, underwriters or corporate this or corporate that? I mean, there's a boatload of money that comes off that right off the top. And, if you're an individual, $100 million is, a boatload of money. 10 million is a lot of money. It's funny. Newport's a pretty affluent place. And with me accepted, I'm like the poorest guy in Newport. I know I have the one of the oldest cars in Newport in regular use. My car is celebrating its 20th year of existence, and let me tell you guys, it's been a rough 20 years. It was inside for a while, but the sun's faded, and we can use a little spray job. Oh, and that reminds me, talk about the car. If anybody goes to our homepage, democracyradionetwork.com, if you scroll up and down, you'll see a PayPal donate button at some point. And, people ask you to tap it or click it or whatever it is, touch it, I don't know. And see, I'm not going to ask you to do any of that stuff. I don't want you to touch it. I don't want you to tap it. I don't want you to click it. I don't want you to do anything like that. What I want you to do is I want you to smash the living daylights out of that thing and make a nice contribution, and let's help old Uncle Ab get his car painted, huh? We could use a little upbeat and a little upgrade in the old car paint department, especially as we get ready. Oh, I shouldn't say this. Especially as we get ready to try and expand our Democracy Radio network. Uh, we are cautiously looking at expanding our coverage, and of course we will keep you posted. But enough for now that I can ask you to think good thoughts, and we'll kind of let it go at that. And you know something else, just to show you, I should have looked this up. Maybe I can do this real quick. But there's a word. I sound like Trump now. There's a word. There's a word, and it's pretty common, and it gets used more than it should relative to President Trump. And the word is a sham, like a sham transaction. And a sham is, and I'm quoting here, something false. Okay, something false. We're automatically in the lie category, or fake, so we're in the lying and deceiving that is meant to trick people into thinking it's real. So it's like a false reason to go forward. Okay, and just along those lines, what do we just so happen to learn from the Financial Times on this Wednesday, October 5th? Well, we just so happen to learn that over 20 states have gotten together and are accusing, I can't believe this, are accusing Trump of a sham tariff probe into their states' records. Now, didn't I just say something false and fraud meant to trick? So, states accuse Trump of sham tariff probe. Uh, I know I can knock you over with a feather once again, couldn't I? A sham. I mean, can you see what I'm talking about? The president does not follow the law, and if you don't follow the law, you better have a good reason. Otherwise, you're an outlaw, a lawbreaker, or a king. Yeah, you're clearly not a citizen, yeah, or not, because at this point you're a criminal, and. That's. I think everybody kind of thought that Trump would wind up in prison if he became president because he couldn't resist the urge to be crooked. And clearly that's, excuse me, proven itself true in spades. And, the last thing I want to get into today, again, my throat's starting to go. I really need to work. There's some kind of throat exercises I can do. I have to talk to some real like radio TV guys, see how they make it through. Talk to some professionals here. Uh, but the last thing I want to talk about is the Financial Times had a huge article, and they do this on different topics once a week. And this is about the aerial war's autonomous future. Think about that. No more cajillion dollar F-16s or F-35s, whatever it is. How about $35,000 drones? Remote controlled. No pilots. No, human elements completely gone. Uh, Now that's a little scary. I mean, that takes the human element, just, the plane without the pilot kind of thing. And this isn't even like a full-blown plane. This is just like a flying bomb, which I guess is what a bomber is. But you see, what's different about the airplane and the real bombers is, on some level, they're designed to come back. Drones are kind of like a one-way deal. It's not like they, oops, he's not home. We can't deliver the payload, so let's go back. Let's go back to the office and check in with, a junior behind the counter. No, it doesn't work like that. So anyway, guys, the overall point here is that the future's here, and the bad thing is Trump brought us to a bad future, and it's coming. The reckoning is coming, and I'm gonna end with my kind of new thing, and this is my genuine hope for the midterms, is that okay, I'll start again. Is that we'll beat them so bad they'll be screaming for mommy. They were expecting a blue wave and got a blue tsunami. So, guys, with that in mind, it's Roger Wilco over and out. Take care and stay well.